Hello and welcome to part one of Idaho Ranch, a three-part series. I'm George Coll, welcoming YouTube and you screeners. YouTube, I will have 30 minutes here for you to get started with the painting. If you like the way I paint, migrate over to Uscreen. It's a paid platform, very affordable. All right, this is part one, and part one is block-in. Started with some basic shapes and then filled in with thin value colors. Don't go crazy with the thick paint yet. We'll do that later. But I don't know, beautiful part of Idaho, and a trip my wife and I were on a couple of years back, coming back from Montana, and really enjoyed the trip. So I think the important thing is keep painting, get outside and paint with your friends, and get critiques. All right, so glad you came by. Let's get started with today's painting. All right, bye-bye. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to part one. I'm George Coll. This is a three-part series of a location on the west side of the Tetons. Over in this ranch country, and you can see the Teton peaks there peeking up above you. I just love this area over there. It's so it's kind of remote, and it just has a lot of texture in it for painting. But anyway, regardless of all that, let's think about this composition first. And I just love the colors, the darks and the lights, and the very soft colors of the mountains right on top. But I think my trees right here seem to be too big, so I'm going to be knocking that down in size. And I think that's about the only major change that I'm going to be working with. I like the buildings and the bright light on the roofs that kind of match the brights on top of the mountains. All right, with that, I've got my basic palette of blue, red, yellow, and I've got my mixers. I've got my Naples yellow, my cool gray, and I've got my raw and burnt sienna. Of course, you know how much I love Viridian. I've got that in my titanium white. Over here I have some cad yellow medium, left over some from last week. It was still fresh, so I kept it on my palette. But these are all pretty fresh colors right here. All right. And I'm going to be probably drawing with a number 2, and then scrubbing in with a kind of a scrubber, maybe a number 4 filbert, and probably using some bigger stuff also today, which will be flats. So let's start with the drawing stuff and start mixing. I guess what I'd be looking for is a foundation line. I think any of you that have been following me for any length of time know I usually start with drawing shapes. And if I'm lucky enough to have a foundation line that I can build up from or down from, I go with that first. And of course, a pretty significant one is this bottom of the painting where the pasture comes up to the house. I'll start there. So I'll do blue, gray, gray, blue, gray, white, white. I'm going to make a darker mixture over here of blue, burnt sienna, blue, burnt sienna, and I'll make this a little larger also. I just added some titanium, some ultra blue, and a little bit of gray. That should be enough to get started, I think. So on one hand I have a paper towel. I have my odorless turp over on the right, and I'm going to figure out where the baseline is going to be. And that's the base, I think, somewhere in here. And then from there, I know I'm going to have some houses and stuff like that. Some sort of a canopy of trees in here somewhere. And then a big mountain coming down here. And then the Tetons up in here. And coming over to here to another Teton type peak over on this side. So this is going to be the real light mountains up in here. And then this will be a little bit darker mountain down in here. And I don't need all those lines down here, but I'll get to this later. All right, let's think about some of these shapes on the bottom. So I'm going into my darker stuff, and I know there's some darks and a lot of, I want to get these, I think I want this canopy of this tree up a little higher, just to break some of the skyline there. Just not quite as high, but just a little bit. So this will be tree area in here, another tree area here. And then over here we're going to have a ranch house. Trying to, as I do this, I'm kind of doing more dot, dot, dash, dash, and then I'll commit to lines here when I feel comfortable that things are in the right place. I think that's a better place to have that main roof right in here. And then there's a dark, I think, on this side. And then there's another light roof coming off of here. And I just kind of make the bottom of my houses dark. I'll worry about the details later. And then over here I have barn kind of running off here, I think. And dark below there. And another roof, I think, lower roof in here with dark below it. A whole bunch of dark down on the bottom. I know there's some light roofs being hidden in there, but they're not my major fellas, so I'll put a few more trees to balance out this area in here. All right, I'm going to get back and take a look. Okay, my line isn't straight. It starts high here and low here, so I'll balance it out with this, or raise this a little bit too. All right, I think somewhere in that neighborhood we should be pretty close. Gonna do a little bit more work on my darks. Raise this roof just a little bit, and I'm just working on my darks. Here now I'm working on the base of my trees. And I think it's about time for me to change to a different brush. So now I'm switching over to a number 6 flat, loading her up with a dark, and you can see it gets things done a little quicker. And more dark. I'm still pretty dry. I don't have a lot of terp or anything in here to really spread things around too much. And now I'm just going to soften some of these darks here, particularly in the canopy of the tree. And then I have more canopy over here at lower level. I think I need to describe trees a little bit better on this side. Okay. I'm going to try to get some of the dark out of my brush with a terp wash and drying it. And I'm going to go over to my blue, white, and gray mixture. And I'm going to be getting the kind of the light mixture in here. I think I need to thin this mountain out just a little bit. I was a little too generous with the size of it. And the Teton watchers will say, that's too fat for the Tetons. And so, let's see, we have a ridge here, then a big area here, and then down. And I know there's snowfields up in here and so forth, but I just want to try to get those later. All right, so this is the ultra blue, a little bit of gray, and this will be snow in this area, so I won't put anything on there now. And I'll put some of this ultra blue mixture in here. All right, so let's get into this mountain here by adding more ultra blue to the white lighter color that we just had, and try that. I added just a little bit of terp in here too. Whoop, too high. I should keep that a little lower. Thank you. And let's run this through here. And then we have some of this ultra blue, the darker ultra, coming up on the side and a few other areas up in here. Starting to look like a block-in, isn't it? Okay. I am getting back. So far, so good. And I need to bring this blue down a little closer to the roof line and get it in some parts of the tree here too. And I think I need to bring it down to the top of the barn on this side. Okay. I'm going to pick this up, put it right here, and I'm going to mix some white and some Viridian. Viridian, white, and let's use that next. Trying to get some of that ultra out of my brush, and I'm going to load it up with thin Viridian and white. And I'm putting that on thin and quickly. And I'm just adding a little bit more turp because I'm running low on product. Okay, get it in there. I think I was a little stingy on the snow field here, so let me move that up. There we go. Making some changes in my drawing as I go. And let's try to get this verding a little closer to the mountain. And if you run into the mountain and get some contamination, just reload. Don't freak out. We're working kind of like all a primo, wet on wet. Now with this same brush, I'm going to be cleaning it and moving down to work on the lower section. But first of all, to get down to the lower section, I think I need a little bit better idea of where the darks begin and the light green begins. So I'm getting a little bit more definite of to where that line is. And that's why I'm loading my brush a few times and getting, I think it's pretty horizontal without it tilting too much. All right, so let's see what we can do here. We've got some blue here. Pick that up, throw it into the green. And let's get some blue into this mixture. And now some yellow. This is lemon yellow. Ultra blue, basically, lemon yellow. Let's get some titanium in there. And when I first started oil painting, I was using sap green. I used it all the time in my paintings. And I think it's a great color. But pretty much I like this combination of blue and yellow because you can make all types of variations with it. And that's what I'm going to do. So I think there's some livestock off to the left. So I might try to do some, oh, just dot, dot, dash, dash. We can maybe figure out that there's some sort of stuff going on here to break that line up a little bit. And I'll put some over here too. Sorry for the background noise. It sounds like my son Mike is out there talking to some guests. All right, so let's go to the green now. Load it up, both sides of this brush. And again, I thinned it down with just a little bit of turp to get some spread. Now, if the color isn't perfect, don't worry about it. We will work out those value colors tomorrow. As you can see, I added a little bit more pasture than the reference has. And I kind of like that. That's okay. I wish I would have put in more cows or horses or livestock or something in here now. And let's add a little bit of Naples to this. It'll lighten it up a little bit, warm it up. There we go. I'm already working on value colors. I like that warm and that green. Naples, more Naples. This is going to be part 1, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube today also. I try to introduce the YouTube crowd to go over to Uscreen for part 2 and 3. I think I can use some of this green. I'm going to add some blue to it. A little bit more yellow. And see, it's a little darker. And I'm going to put that in right in here. I think I see a stretch of it and a little maples to it. And I'll put some of that back in here. It's a little too dark. I lightened it up just a little bit. I think some of you may see it back there. And I might have a little bit of it in other places too. All right, so I think we're doing okay with time. So let's do a little bit more in the middle ground, trees and stuff like that. That will be next. So I'm going to pick up my green grays here. I'm going to see if I can get some of my darks. There's not much left. And clean my palette. The next mixture. All right, with that done, let's go back to this flat number 6. Get some raw sienna. A little bit of, ultra. And let's introduce some of these warmer colors up in this upper area. And we'll put some over in here too. And let's go more ultra now in the mixture. Wait. Sorry, let's go back to, I need a little bit more ultra in that mixture. And let's get this, more ultra, raw sienna. There we go. So it's kind of a transition. And I'll use some of that over here on whatever this pine tree design is in here. And I think, going back to the green, I think this is kind of a broken up line here, like some green is behind the fence. So I'm making this as kind of a less defined dark right here. Now we use some some Viridian up in the sky. And I'm going to go back to Viridian and white. Darn it, got some contamination in my brush. Let me clean that for just a second. And let's go into, we'll start working on some balance stuff. And so I am cleaning my brush. I'm making a thin mixture. And I'm going to run some of that all over some of my ultra. It's not thin enough. There we go, thin. And that even lightens these mountains even more. See how that's basically how I see these things, like in the afternoon, or when you have this real strong, I think this is afternoon light hitting the mountains. And I just put some of the lighter sky color right into the mountain. And I thin it down with some terp or whatever your medium is. As you can see, it still says what it needs to say, and it even gives it that more mysterious, softer look that you see with these mountains in the afternoon. That's nice. All right, very good. Let's go back to an ultra mixture, white. And let's get a little bit more defined up in here. Get that. I still got contamination in my brush. Sorry about that. Okay, let's get this thing loaded up. There's just a whole bunch of this stuff up in this area. And let's get some of this viridian and white. Add just a little bit of burnt sienna to it. And let's calm down and put some green up in these canopies. This was a springtime trip Jenny and I did. We were coming back from Missoula and came down the west side of the Tetons. And that's how we picked up this reference. Alrighty, I'm going to do just one more thing before we bring this to an end. And I'm going to go to a smaller brush, looks like a number 2, and I'm going to work on defining my edges a little bit in the structures. And I need a dark on this side. And I'll do the same over here. He's kind of sloppy. And I think I need a good dark under this fella. Then we have some space in between, so I'll use just some green down in between these structures. Now I know everybody wants to put these trunks in and everything, you know, and get all these things, but I think we have plenty of time to do that. We got enough other things to do. And I'm going to strengthen my darks down in the bottom here, below the tree, or at the bottom of the tree. And let's just get some ultra blue in here. Some burnt sienna, ultra blue. I'm sorry, that was raw sienna. Ultra blue. And let's get some of that interesting color in there. And you can see my darks are kind of my glue, the connection that kind of brings everything together over here. These need to be darker, come on. All right, starting to take shape, like you say, okay, mountains, trees, ranch house, and some blobs up front here. Let's darken them up just a little bit. I don't know if I have enough dark left. All right, I think that's enough. And I'm just going to get back and take one more little look before I close this down. So what I wanted to do, I accomplished in part one, which was block in. I put some basic shapes where the objects are going to be: trees, ranch house, mountains, pasture. So I just did some rough lines as to where that is. And then I started with thin value colors. And that's basically what we're doing on block in. Then as we progress into the painting tomorrow and in part 3 on Wednesday, I will be balancing my values and say what's too dark, what's too light, and how do I kind of bring this painting and balance it with the surrounding value colors. So it's, you know, like it doesn't look pasted on top of, you know, what's behind it. Want to kind of incorporate everything so it all looks naturally growing and progressing as you would see see one of these views. All right, so with that, I'm going to bring part 1 to a close. Thank you so much for coming by, and we'll see you in part 2 and 3. All right, thanks very much. Bye-bye.